It's good to see you this morning. We got a great interview and we got a couple of announcements here. And as you can see, I am not in my usual spot. We are traveling, and I got my traveling mate here. So we are in the car. We're not driving, however, but we're down in New Bern. We're down here for the weekend. So anyway, good to see everybody. And Allison, give us a couple updates, please.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and happy Friday to you. I just have a few brief updates before we start this wonderful interview. The first thing I'd like to remind you of is the next coalition meeting will be next Friday, May 21st. Agenda and support materials are going out today, but you can also find that information available on the website. The schedule is different for our May meeting next week, so pay close attention to the time on the agenda as we will be featuring a guest speaker. You should have received a member email 2 days ago, approximately, with a list of resources and events coming up. Two particular events I would like to highlight is the North Carolina Institute of Medicine is doing a family-friendly workplace policies and caregiver supports collaborative event. That's in partnership with the Serious Illness Coalition, the Coalition on Aging, and the North Carolina Essentials for Childhood. So more information about that can be found in your member email and on the website. The second event that I would like to bring your attention to is the NC Partnership to Address Adult Abuse Annual Conference. That is taking place next week, May 17th through the 19th, and today is the last day to register. So I will put a link to register for that in the chat. That can also be found on their website and in your member email, so look for that. And then the last update that I'd like to share with you is this is our last Friday facts for this month. So look for us again starting in June. Thank you, David.
Thanks so much, Allison. So we've got a great interview this morning with Jeff Thigpen. And Jeff has very kindly agreed to join us this morning. And as you can see, he's in an official office. He is the Guilford County Register of Deeds, and it has been for a number of years now. This is an elected position. You've been reelected how many times now, Jeff?
Can't remember. Well, that's a good thing, I guess. I got elected in 2004, and I was a county commissioner for 6 years before that. And
yeah.
So I think this is my fifth.
That's great. So we've gotten to know Jeff over the years here around end of life issues and veterans issues. But Jeff, it's great to have you with us. And I want to start when you grew up. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up and where you went to school and just a few things about that.
Yeah. It all started in a little town called Burgaw. I grew up in Pender County. And I was talking to you at some point about just being exposed to issues of serious illness. When I was a kid, when I was 5, my dad lost his leg in a farming accident. We were a farming family. We didn't own the farm, but my dad helped manage it. And he lost his leg in a combine accident, spent about a year in the hospital, was bedridden 22 years of his life. My mom, shortly after he came home, she went blind for about a year. And so when we were kids, it was like, there's a lot of stuff going on. And we were the quintessential, I've got Irish ancestry. And so we were having a really sad Irish story there growing up, but we learned a lot from all that. And so I come at these kinds of conversations with a great deal of respect for what you all do and what the coalition has done, the task force has done, that kind of thing. But I graduated from Pender High School, came up to Guilford College, graduated in 1993, played on the baseball team, got the opportunity to do a whole lot of different, really interesting, cool stuff at a Quaker school, founded by the Society of Friends on Friendly Avenue. So I'm a great believer in hospitality. And I got my master's degree at UNC Greensboro in public affairs. Got elected. At the time, I was pretty young, 27, elected county commissioner. Did a lot of work around education and transportation, things like that. Then became registry of deeds. And so been doing that for a while. Yeah. And I can go on.
So we met. Thank you. That's interesting. Well, so I want to quickly mention a sign you have in the back of you there, Willie Nelson. Tell us how you got to know Willie Nelson and what that's about, just real quick.
Well, I would like to think I've actually met Willie Nelson, but I've not. But I've gone to a lot of his concerts and all over the place. I will now disclose I left county commissioner meetings when I was a commissioner to go to Willie Nelson concerts. I actually had a Burgall hat that I bought and was at one of his concerts in Raleigh. And I had this elaborate plan of getting the hat signed by Willie Nelson because I thought I could do this. And so I duct taped the dark marker to my hat. Thought I was going to be able to, to get it done. I positioned myself at a good place, threw the hat up on the stage during one of his songs. And I got these great pictures of him looking at my hat on the stage for about 5 minutes. And so he ended up taking the hat. My marker fell off somewhere along the trip to the stage of the hat. Put it on, he wore it. And then he looked over and smiled at me with a smile for the ages. And then he just tossed it into the sea of people. And I was like, man, that's just like Willie Nelson. And so anyway, I went and I was telling you, I talked to the guy that caught the hat and I said, hey dude, that's my hat. And he looks at me and goes, no, it's my hat now. And so, well, can I at least get a picture? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. So I like to think Willie Nelson is a cool guy. My dad used to like to listen to Willie Nelson and so many of those country singers that during the 70s. I told you and Catherine, the ones that lost their dogs and wives and lost their houses. There's something about that I like and inspires me. So
Exactly.
So I keep Willie behind me. Keep me honest.
Yeah, you need to keep a picture of that hat somewhere if you still have it.
Actually, I do, and it's really funny. I wish I had it in here. I'd show you. We'd all get a laugh out of it because the guy's just like, "Hey, it's my hat now."
That's great.
Yeah.
So, as Laura Jane has in her background, she's the co-chair for our coalition caregiving and patient engagement working group. She's got on her background there, it's Older Americans Month, and we've got Heather Burkhardt here also from the Coalition on Aging. So that's great. Hello to everybody, and again, happy Older Americans Month. So Jeff, you've got an affinity for both older Americans and for veterans, but for people who are around end of life. Tell us how you got engaged in the whole end of life world.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned my parents around serious illness. And a lot of times, many of us come at these issues in ways that they're personal. And so I when I was young, I lost an uncle who was very close to me and had a big impact on me as a person. And also as registry of deeds, we deal with death certificates. And so one of the things we try to do with our office is, nobody knows what I do, by the way, as registry of deeds, but if you buy a house, if you get married, if you have kids, if you get out of the military, or someone dies in your family, you come see me. And so those are pretty important points in people's lives. And so what we try to do here is not only deliver the services well, but we also try to add value in these areas. And so the idea of Thank a Vet and with veterans, or the Good Grief podcast as it relates to dealing with death certificates, in terms of marriage and things like that, doing things at which we help serve people. And so I kept having people come in, and I have a number of unique stories. I had a lady who had stage 4 cancer who came in, and I mentioned her in our podcast series that, you know, she wanted to speak to me, and I had no idea why, but, you know, she was actually planning her own funeral. And she came, she said, I just wanted to understand the process of death certificates. Um, and, you know, when I picked myself up off the floor and realized the courage and the wisdom of this human being who was battered with cancer, who came in, who wanted to try to help her family be prepared. I also had a situation, Mary Rakestraw. Death is a bipartisan, or it transcends partisan politics, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Mary Rakestraw, who was a Republican county commissioner here, is a friend of mine. Her husband, Frank Rakestraw, planned their everything out for Mary. He's a very detail-oriented person. Him and I used to have these wonderful conversations that were both heated and comical about politics. But after Frank passed away, you know, Mary was trying to get access to a safety deposit box and was having an extremely difficult time, and really wasn't served well. And so, you know, I say we had the Good Grief podcast. It came from Mary saying, "Good grief, you know, I can't get, you know, to the safety deposit box. Good grief, this is driving me crazy." And with that said, I think that all of us in this network, in these coalitions and community partners, you know, we want to be a part of, as the vision was of what y'all started out doing with the task force, was that these things are person centered, that that you have the right infrastructure available and the right support systems, and you have community support so that people can be able to deal with a number of issues that come up. And you all know, you've been around. Death comes at us. You know, what's that commercial? Life comes at you, you know, so many ways. Well, you know, death and dying issues come at us in so many different ways. And so, you know, part of what's been great about our podcast series is it's given us the opportunity you know, I don't necessarily, you know, I've you know, I was the youngest county commissioner, you know, I mean, people, you know, everybody wants to be young and vibrant. And a lot of times we live in a culture that doesn't do a good job supporting discussions around death and dying. And there's stigma, there's fear, there's a lot of times lack of investment in resources, lack of commitment in order to do that. And so the last, you know, year, we've done about, I think we're about 45 interviews of a cross section of folks in our community, where we just unapologetically say, we're going there. We're going to get this party started. You know, we're going to talk about it. And we've talked about it in a lot of different unique and wonderful ways, of which I've learned so much. I'll mention Carly Malcolm, who is my co-host on the podcast series.
Yeah.
And she is a fellow from the North Carolina Institute of Government. There's a Lead for NC Fellows program. She's a college graduate. She's been a co-host of these podcasts, and we sit around after a lot of these podcasts, just, you know, deeply appreciating the work that people are doing, and we're learning so much. And, you know, our position is not recreating a wheel anywhere. It's just, can we in our small space find a place to help facilitate people understanding what people are doing around hospice and palliative care and bereavement counseling, what faith communities are doing, advanced care planning. You know, how do you deal with the bureaucracy? You know, the clerk's office and wills and estates. We're dealing with a lot of folks who are both mourning and dealing with all the social emotional stuff that comes in that space, and then they're having to, you know, transfer a car title. It's just like, you know, they're dealing with some stuff on a lot of levels, and so we want to be able to provide a voice. As Jane Gibson, who used to work at Kids Path here in Greensboro within hospice at the time, it was now ThorCare, she said, you know, what I worry about the most is the phone call, messages, and emails that we get at 1 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where people are just struggling, and
So
so
you're
to come
helping
into this
people.
ecosystem with folks like you all who are doing this work, I'm humble and have a lot of appreciation for you.
Well, you're helping people with these kinds of things on a regular basis, which is it is your job, but it's a little bit beyond what the normal register of deeds would necessarily think that their job might be. And Catherine had a question.
So Jeff, that's really leads to my question. Um, you're doing something, I had no idea what a register of deeds did until you reached out to us. And then when you explained what you've been trying to do around end of life, is there a venue? One of the things the Serious Illness Coalition tries to do is make it easier for all people living with serious illness. And we're looking at processes and ways that things can be more standardized. Is there a venue through all of the registrars of deeds in North Carolina where what you're doing could become a part of what they're doing so that we make it easier for people?
Right now we don't, but we have a state association of registered deeds, 100 counties, and there's just some wonderful people that are a part of that, who are elected across North Carolina. Um, what part of what we're all doing, right? No matter where you are as a part of this coalition, we're looking at kind of where we are and how we can leverage our piece so that we can both, again, amplify it, but also connect in a web that achieves certain things. An example I'll provide, and I mentioned our Think of It program. When we started that, it's basically a program where we partner with local businesses to help provide discounts on goods and services to veterans. And I think in Guilford County, we're up around 500 now businesses that are a part of that program. When we started, it was one county, it was us. And I stole, by the way, I'm not awesome and great and wonderful. I stole it from a county in Pennsylvania. And she's a good friend of mine, by the way. But we started it here quickly. And again, hey, I'm an elected Democrat, by the way. And my very good friend down in New Hanover County, who's the Register of Deeds, immediately started it. And she's a Republican. And so we began a bipartisan approach to really do something meaningful. And within a few years, we're now looking back and going, we've got 35 counties and we've got 2,000 businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that was a great success. And it's also instrumental in demonstrating how a group of us can work together around something else. And so I think we're at the beginning of a conversation in terms of the question you're asking. I also know that we have the evidence that we've actually done something. And I think there are 100 county register deeds, and every single one of them I know care about people who are dealing with these kinds of issues. And so I hope that in the future, maybe we can work together to get the voices of the coalition in front of the Register of Deeds so that we can begin to understand both, what y'all are doing and how you're doing it and how we might be able to support it. That's the Register of Deeds piece. By the way, of course, county governments have health departments of health and human services, emergency service EMS. Jim Albright was one of our interviews, for example, in the Good Grief podcast, as well as Ben Chavis, who's the tax director. So there's tax issues that come up. There are issues that come up related to, of all things. One of the, in this, I know you all deal with heavy issues. One of the issues that came up was somebody said, we ought to really interview people who deal with pet loss. And I'm like, pet loss? And then I look on Facebook and I've got 5 of my friends who are mourning their animals. And so we brought in the animal services director and someone from Trellis who talked to us about that. And it was a great conversation. And it's not just about that. People who are dealing with 10 other things can listen to those podcasts and those conversations and say, some of this may apply to me in a different way. So there's opportunities within local governments and municipalities to grab onto these conversations more. An additional piece I know it's really important: issues of health equity and dealing with communities and people of color. The urban and rural divide around healthcare delivery and accessibility and resources. The idea that North Carolina has not been expanded in terms of Medicaid coverage, and we've got all these people who are uninsured. And all of that are within local communities who want to have educated children. They want to have, government services that deliver good services to them every day. And they also are a part of a civic and private sector. And, we know the implications of when people aren't healthy. We're dealing with more mental health issues. We're dealing with so much in these areas. And so I don't mean to give you a 5-minute answer to your question, but I think that we all know there's a lot there. And I think we need to be strategic about coalescing around this vision that you all are promoting in ways that we work together to both help the individual and also help us collaborate as communities to provide that support.
That is a great answer, and we don't mind it being a 5-minute answer, because you've given us a lot of stuff that is important to this coalition. And it's part of the reason, besides you're a cool guy, of you being on the show this morning, because a lot of the people listening to this and people who will listen to it, we got the wheels turning. I'm looking at Ann Elmore right there. She's with the Secretary of State's office. We've got
Hey.
Bethel and others with the coalition, Heather Burkhardt, as I mentioned, with the Coalition on Aging. We've got a whole bunch of folks who are extremely well connected, but I bet we don't all know about registers of deeds around the state and the 100 counties, and each one of them has, and figuring out ways that we can build relationships around these issues on things that you all have to do. Like you said, you've got issues that come at you every day. So I want to encourage all of our participants to think about how we can connect better, especially as we got this new bill that's hopefully going to wind its way through the legislature very soon. It's already passed in the Senate, as we've mentioned, around advanced care planning and making it easier for people to both get their advanced care plans and then to upload them to the Secretary of State's registry, which is going to be an electronic process here. So,
yeah, and I appreciate the work that y'all are doing around that. And by the way, I just think it is really cool to do a podcast like this where you all are like in a car. I mean, that's cool. You know what I mean? I'm like, look, David and Catherine are so cool, and they're working with this group that are like driving change. They took a few minutes in their car to do the podcast. I think that's a party now. We gotta get that party started and get this stuff rolling. So hopefully we'll roll over to the legislature and get some good stuff.
That's right.
And by the way, I think you mentioned that the bill, I think when it passed, was it passed in the Senate or something? It was like 90-0.
Yeah, 49-0. Yeah.
49-0. Okay, yeah. So these things, when you build the relationships with people, a lot of times, the hope is that because of the integrity that you all are working with and in this space, that people will just cut the crap and they will like, okay, what are your recommendations and how can we support you? And I think that most of the time, whenever the foundation is laid, I think people know better. I mean, there are a lot of politics being played around, a lot of stuff, and there is a lot of blame to go around, by the way, for all of it. But at the same time, I think that there is a reservoir of power and influence among people who are in this orbit, in this ecosystem, that can make and will and are making a huge difference, not just in terms of just an individual family, but I think all of us are looking for the power of changing these systems. so that they're more responsive to people, and that we create a deeper, more authentic culture of support for each other. So, if you all can have these conversations in the car, I'm like, look, what am I doing today? I'm in my office. I ought to be able to get something done.
Well, here's a question. Mary Bethel just asked, is Jeff thinking about another office, a higher office?
No. Oh, I'm thinking about my daughter, who just signed a letter of intent to play volleyball at the University of Asheville. That's what I'm thinking about right now. And I'm also thinking 2 months ago, I was pulling my hair out going, I have no idea what my child is going to be doing in the next 3 months. On a serious note, what I've learned in politics is a lot of times when people start thinking about another office ahead of where they are, a lot of times they lose track of why they're doing what they're doing. And what I've also found is county governments are where the rubber meets the road. So no matter how high you go, you got to be able to get stuff done at a local level.
Yeah.
And so I have thought so much of that in terms of my public service, I found more gratification and success and more authenticity on the local level. And so I don't, whatever. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but, I'm going to be watching some volleyball games, hopefully.
Yeah.
In Asheville.
We know what you're going to be doing for at least the next 3.5 years.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep rolling on here in the Register of Deeds office. Register of Deeds office is where it's at, people. I don't know how you all don't know what we do. I mean, we're like awesome,
We need to seriously connect with you on a more substantive basis, and I'll just throw the challenge out, because we've got people in the caregiving working group, like I mentioned. We've got our advanced care planning. Linda Darden at Trellis is one of our co-chairs on the advanced care working group. We've got clinical working group. We've got folks. John Thomas here this morning from Transitions. He's the CEO and is on the clinical practice working group. We're going to have a forum here shortly. And Catherine's on the clinical practice working, and we've got a communications and advocacy and education working group. And we need to figure out some concrete ways that we can connect through you and then develop that relationship around the Register of Deeds around the state.
Yeah, and I think it's all possible. Because I like I was telling you at some point, there's when you get into these things, we think the issues are really broad and big and too big for us. But when you begin getting into the work, there are a lot of degrees of overlap of people who are doing a lot of really good stuff in local communities. For example, Wendy Cutler, I think, may be on the call. I interviewed her during the podcast. Dr. Anthony Spearman, I know him, head of North Carolina NAACP. Mark Hensley, who y'all know, we interviewed for the podcast series with AARP, Pam Strader, who's a pastor. I mean, there's a lot of people who are really get the vision, and you organize around how do we make this work. And we all can't get away from the work, by the way, and I think we all know it, is that we got to really put our shoulder into all this. But I think there are pathways forward that I'm excited about.
Well, that's wonderful. Catherine, do you have another?
No, I have so many ideas, Jeff, that I think we'll wait for another day for those, because we're running out of time. But I do think there are opportunities to take and harness the information that you and the services you provide with a lot of our members, and ways that we can maybe get that information out in a much more consistent way.
Yeah. One specific thing I'll say is one thing we can all do, which I'll try to do with y'all in the next 6 or 8 months, is talk to your county commissioners about getting their human resources departments to work with their employees and first responders to have a day where they partner with a local bar association or attorneys or others to do advanced directives for their employees. That's one thing that could have a huge impact in a local community. And so I think we're all thinking there are a lot of those really cool ideas that we don't have to wait around for people to do, and we can do it and have a huge impact. And also, by the way, create that information infrastructure so that all those things are easily stored. You can get to them, by the way.
Yeah, how about
we're
that?
doing exactly.
We're
That's a good thing.
focused on it. Thanks so much for joining us, Jeff. It's great to have you on, and I know everybody enjoyed it, and we'll keep driving this forward.
Absolutely. And thank you and the coalition for all the work you do. You're in my heart every day, and I really appreciate what you're doing, and look forward to doing anything I can to support your work.
We'll stay connected. Thank you all. Y'all have a great weekend.
Take care.